Alright, YouTube, right now everybody, all the pundits and the media are ranting about how the Russians are hacking our election system. There was an intrusion into Illinois voter records. 200,000 people had their records taken. First and foremost, this isn't really electoral fraud, it's just people grabbing up what is essentially public information anyway, number one. Number two, I'm not convinced it was the Russians. Some idiot from Illinois could be the one doing this, and you wouldn't have a way to know because they'd be using a proxy of some sort. All they have to do is use a Russian server to direct their attack, use a shell client or whatever, VPN, and, there you go. It looks like the Russians intruded the system. In reality, it was someone, 5 minutes away from the actual server that they're targeting in Illinois, and you don't necessarily know. Now, none of the pundits on the news, clearly these people don't know anything about electronics. They don't know anything about, they don't even know about, how to use the internet, apparently, because half the stuff out of their mouths is just a bunch of complete nonsense that anybody under, 100 years of age would know. How to use email, what is encryption, what is the dark web, what is Tor, all of these different things. It's clear they don't know what they're talking about, yet they continue to mouth off. They're declaring, oh, the Russians are trying to hack our elections. Sorry, but I'm not buying it. I think that there's fairly clearly a reason why the same media groups that are covering for Hillary, and she's constantly blaming the Russians, of course, for everything that happens to her campaign. I think there's a reason that they would try to play it up and continue blaming the Russians. I don't think that it was them at all. I think that some hacker or group of hackers targeting this information, possibly a bunch of Clinton fans trying to rig things, get into some electronic voting machines or whatever, simply routed their attack through Russia. And why not? It helps to cover their tracks anyway, number one. Number two, it's not like the Russians are going to be sharing significant amounts of data with the US government in the first place. There's a reason why all these attacks seem to come from Russia or China or some place like that. Yeah, a lot of them are organic. They are coming from those countries. Some of them are not. Some of them are simply routed through those countries to escape detection and to escape prosecution when you're handling something that you wouldn't want the authorities to know that you're playing around with. It's fairly self-explanatory. I wouldn't be surprised if the big egg on the face revelation Assange has regarding the DNC leaks is that the hackers only routed their attacks through Russia, and that he's aware of this, that they could prove that this was actually the case, and that he intends to disclose that fact so that Hillary looks extra dishonest right before the election. I wouldn't be surprised. It makes sense, because I can't imagine why the Russians would want to stop somebody who sold them a bunch of uranium through the Clinton Foundation, so that never quite made sense either. But I will say this, though. All electronic voting in this country should be banned. I think we need to use just paper ballots. Now, here in Vermont, we have simple paper ballot. You take a black marker and you mark off for the candidate. It's as simple as that. And everything is physical. It can be counted by hand. There's no worries about, oh, sudden power outage, I guess we can't vote. No worries about, oh, the system got hacked, I guess, our votes didn't count. No worries about such things. Just use a paper ballot. I'm not talking about the primitive voting machines used in Florida in 2000 with the hanging chads, the dimpled chads, the pregnant chads, the chad chads, and so forth. I'm talking just with a black marker. It's fairly simple. You count them by hand if there's any reason to think there might be a discrepancy. If the result is really close, it should automatically trigger a count by hand. That's fine. I mean, it helps to prevent the possibility, however minute, of actual rigging in the election. If somebody's going to try in this age to rig an election in a state or in a municipality or something to try to swing some electoral votes, they're going to target electronic voting machines because it's a lot easier than targeting paper ballots. Yeah, okay, they print up a bunch of fake paper ballots. How exactly are they going to deliver them without being noticed doing so? It's going to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to have insiders to let you do that. But these electronic voting machines, it's been testified to court and Congress alike over and over. Yeah, they're vulnerable. No, they're actually pretty easy to hack. All you need is somebody to develop a Stuxnet for electronic voting systems, and they all become completely worthless. And if you don't catch the problem, before your election is held in a timely enough manner to do something about it, to wipe it out, or to print up enough paper ballots, you're kind of screwed. Because you could end up with somebody with command of the, U.S. Armed Forces, the commander-in-chief, the head of the executive branch, or a major senator, or a group of senators or congresspeople, potentially influencing the political landscape of the United States for an entire generation or so, getting chosen by people who, let's face it, may not have people's best interests at hand. Now, I'd like to think there are ethical hackers out there. Whether they're white or black hat hackers or not makes no difference. There are plenty of ethical people out there who do hack. Who would be considered black hat hackers. They'd be considered criminals by various governments and by various organizations that do at least intend to do good. There are people with the ungroup of Anonymous who think this. Now, I may not agree with all of their methods. I may not agree with all of the outcomes there. A lot of these people, probably they support like Hillary or they support Jill Stein or something. But if they're doing at least what they think is right, well, then I suppose that gives them at least an ethical pass, if not a legal one. So I can respect that. Again, not necessarily who they're supporting, particularly, but generally, groups like this, which do feed WikiLeaks information, groups in alliances like Snowden or something like that, they're more about general accountability and transparency than they are attempting to influence things one way or the other. Of course, Assange has come out and said that Trump is an idiot, but then again, of course, he's releasing primarily Clintonian information. I have a feeling that's because the Democrats were more inept during the cycle and because there's simply more dirt there. So people would prefer to attack her materials and those of her allies because they realize that she's a liar. They realize that she's corrupt. They also realize she's ahead, so they want to bring it down to a lower level, probably have a closer election anyway because it's more interesting. Some of them are probably motivated by, hey, let's make this a cage fight for the next few months because at the very least, it'll be fun to watch. I'm not convinced it was the Russians that did this. Now, I'm not a fan of Russia. The grand chessboard is still very much in play. There is an atomic standoff. It's been going on since the atomic era was no longer monolithic, and it will continue for some time until it probably ends in nuclear war. So I will say that. The grand chessboard is still in play. The Cold War is still there. You can pretend it's not, but it is. The Russian government is totalitarian. It's far more totalitarian than the U.S. government, and I'm a frequent critic of everything the U.S. government does. It would be unjustified if I were to give the Russians a pass and say, oh yeah, but Putin's fine because, God, white savior, messiah man or something. No, he's not. He's just a corporate crook. He's an oligarch. People keep trying to tell me on my other video regarding Russia, oh, well, he's not a globalist, he's closer to nationalism. Well, that's the lesser of two evils argument, and you don't even realize it. And he's not really closer to nationalism. He still plays the same game. The fact that he's better at covering up that duplicity doesn't make him necessarily a smarter or stronger individual. It makes him a more empowered figure within a government that is more, authoritarian in form and thus doesn't experience so much transparency, so many possible restraints on its use of power. I will say Putin is also a religious individual. I can't exactly agree with him on that. Putin is opposed to the Western world flourishing because the Western world is seeking to ever denigrate the capabilities of the Russian state as well as the Chinese state. This is just the grand chessboard sort of more observable action. I happen to support the Western world. I don't support the current government of the United States in most of its endeavors because I see them as out of step with the Constitution we should be trying to defend. I think that our values are better than those of other countries. I just think that we've fallen away from them. Therein lies the problem. I think we need to constrain government. We need to keep the grand chessboard going, but it doesn't require abusing the domestic population. It doesn't require infringement of free speech. It doesn't require disarmament of firearms. It doesn't require the denigration of states' rights. It doesn't require the denigration of the right to privacy. None of these things are actually necessary. It's a false equivalency to safety that the government sets up to get away with its cronyism. So that being said, though, that doesn't mean, just because I don't like the government of Russia, it does not mean that every intrusion, every hack, every leak has something to do with Putin trying to screw with the US elections. I know that Hillary Clinton wants to frame it that way, because it makes it easier for her to excuse her corruption. But it's simply not the case. There is no reason under the sun why Putin or any other higher up in Russia would command their black hat hackers to go after Hillary Clinton, that glorious shining example of virtue, to try to dig up all sorts of false scandals about her, as her fans frequently now parrot, because she, in fact, is the greatest friend of Russia currently running. And Jill Stein appears to be friendly with Putin as well. Gary Johnson, he's like, well, fuck the world, we're going to be libertarians. And Trump is saying he wants a wall. He's saying he wants a reform of NATO. Guess what? It would strengthen NATO. It wouldn't make it weaker. I hate to tell people this. He doesn't want to destroy NATO. And this threat from Justin Trudeau about getting rid of cooperation on NORAD is just a bunch of nonsensical hot air. It's exactly like Obama when he went over before the Brexit vote and said, oh, well, if you Brexit, you'll be at the back of the line for trade. And then thereafter he said, oh, well, it's not actually going to change anything. It's because it's just a bluff. It's a bluff to try to influence people. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. Trudeau can hang himself for all I care. As far as Putin goes, the Russians. Now, I don't believe they were involved in this. I think it was domestic hackers, maybe even people who are politically motivated from within one campaign or the other, trying to screw around with things and blanket their movements by pretending to be Russians, because with electronic systems it's possible to do that. I can use a proxy server in any country that I happen to want, and I can go on the line and it'll look like I'm in Germany, or it'll look like I'm in Australia or something. It doesn't mean I'm actually a German or an Australian. It's not even illegal to do that. The hacking part may be, but of course they're going to try to cover their movements. I don't believe it was the Russians at all. And I think that the media is being disingenuous, trying to claim it has foreknowledge of the fact that they're Russian. I think that the FBI is trying to cover up the fact that somebody within this country actually did it, and they don't want to admit that it's possible for any American group to possibly be trying to screw around with the election system, because that would cause uproar. Can you imagine the chaos it would be caused? It said, oh yeah, a group of partisan Democrats or Republicans or whatever tried to screw around with the Illinois voting system. Oh, yeah, don't worry about it, people. There's only 200,000 records stolen. People would be up in arms. Everybody in the country would say, oh, well, we need to get rid of electronic voting. Problem is, the election's getting pretty close here. I don't think that there's enough time for them to actually switch over all of these systems and organize it all. It'd be difficult to do. So they're trying to bide their time. They might make that repair thereafter, but then again, remember, the FBI and the NSA and the CIA, these are groups of very good hackers. They can fuck with the election system too. Maybe they want it to be electronic so they can do just that. Oh, hey, we'll vote ourselves a raise. This candidate's promising to be on our side. I think we'll elect them. They could shield it and make it look like it was coming from Russia too now, couldn't they? So you'll excuse me if I don't take the media or the government or any of these alphabet soup agencies at face value when they try to tell me that for some odd reason Putin wanted to read the voter rolls of Illinois. I'm going to call bullshit on that one. Illinois, if it was a swing state, maybe. Illinois, it's about as blue as you can possibly be. It's not up for in play. If it were in play, it would mean Trump was absolutely crushing his competition. But it's not, so who would give a fuck? Nobody. It wouldn't make any sense. That's about all. Peace out.